Hello there, welcome to the RetroSaber podcast, where we always take the high ground. Now today I want to have a conversation about physical media and the lack of physical media. We're going to bring this down eventually to very specifically focusing on gaming. But first of all, I want to paint the scene, because by physical media, I of course mean a disc, a cartridge, a cassette, whatever it is that you can physically hold that has the information for that game, for that song, for that film right there on it. And no matter where you take it, you can plug it in an appropriate device, like a DVD player, a cassette player, a PlayStation, and it'll work. But we're slowly moving away from that, and not just in gaming, as we said. Less and less people actually buy CDs, albums on a disc. More and more people are using things like iTunes and actually things like Netflix with regards to movies and shows, where they don't even buy the show outright. Instead, they rely on streaming services. Not only do they not own a physical copy, they don't own it at all. But even people that do, and in gaming we see this quite a bit, will occasionally buy a game, download it to their console, but they don't physically own it. In fact, a great deal of console games now, even when you go to a shop and buy it, you can open up that box and find there's no cartridge or disc inside. Just a code for you to download when you get home. What was the point of me going to the shop in the first place? So why is this a problem? Well, maybe it isn't. For a lot of people, it won't be. In fact, for a lot of people, it solves problems. Some people might be considering around the space storage issues of having lots and lots of games racked up on shelves. Takes away that problem. Maybe with regards to the balance between buying a game and using things like PlayStation Plus to be able to just play certain games without actually paying them, that monthly subscription, that might work fine for some people too, who don't want to spend a huge amount outright on a game. But what I'm tending to find more and more is that there's a lot of people that have access to those game streaming platforms, that have access to the PlayStation Plus store. They pay that amount. Do they really play those games that much? It doesn't seem so to me, but I could be wrong. But these people will still often then go and buy the latest game to download, taking up a huge amount of storage on their console, storage which is quite valuable and a very finite commodity. And then, really, they don't own the game. Now again, is that a problem? Well, a lot of people would say no. A lot of people would say that, well, I do own the game. I don't have it physically, but I own the game. I could sell that PlayStation, buy a new PlayStation, log into my account and download it. And I own it. Yeah, you could, technically. But it's still dependent on, for example, PlayStation, Sony existing and making games. It's dependent on their store working the same way. And for, I think, a lot of younger gamers and people who stick to modern games, that might not be a problem. But then we look at gamers who are terming themselves retro gamers, fans of retro gaming. People that buy a game now and will hold value to it. And I don't just mean financially, but be invested in it 10, maybe 20 years from now. We've already seen with some of the earlier versions of these things where people on those stores, they shut down. And if you haven't been able to download it to a console, or that console is now broken, you'll never be able to access it again. It's not necessarily an immediate concern, but over time, unless you hold a disc, a cartridge, you will lose that game, and you will not get it back. It will happen over time, and a lot of people might not care about that. I didn't. When I had a PlayStation 2, I didn't care so much about my older consoles anymore. I would buy and sell games willy-nilly. Didn't matter too much if I lost them, because I had the newer one. And it was only as I got a little bit older I looked back and really valued some of those older games. I ended up going back and trying to hunt those games out and get them. A game like, for example, Operation Genesis, a Jurassic Park game for the original Xbox, I traded in for about £4 off another game on the Xbox 360. And then years later, desperately wanting that game back, I hunted and ended up paying nearly twice as much as I did when it was brand new. Over time, the impact of the lack of physical media could mean potentially the death of retro gaming. Now, let's put a big caveat on that. You see, in a lot of ways it won't. In a lot of ways, retro gaming is going to grow and grow and grow because more and more consoles are being filled with a back catalogue of previous games. The Nintendo Switch has some fantastic bits on its catalogue that allow you to play a monthly subscription to play games from the NES, the SNES, the Game Boy Color, the Sega Mega Drive. There's tons of content on there. For the Nintendo 64, so many good games that now people can play every single month, as long as you keep paying your subscription. As long as you keep paying that subscription. The moment you don't have them anymore. And what if you decide when that generation runs out to move on to a different console? To move from Sony to Nintendo, or Nintendo to Xbox to PlayStation. Well, you don't have those games anymore, unless you want to keep paying a subscription, but even then, over time, they won't be there. But retro gaming, and I don't want to speak for other people here too much, but in my opinion, retro gaming isn't just about playing old games. For a lot of people, maybe it is. But for others, it's collecting those games, holding that piece of history, holding that game in your hand that 10, 20, 30 years ago, you as a kid, or someone else as a kid, was plugging in and playing every single day throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, and beyond. I remember watching Star Trek First Contact. I apologise for anyone who isn't a Star Trek fan. This is only a slight, tiny tangent, I promise. And there's a part of it where Picard and Data, they go back in time and they're looking at this ship, the first ever ship to break the warp barrier. And Picard reaches out and puts his hand on it. And Data, the android, asks if being able to touch it changes his perception of it. And he quickly said, oh yes, for humans, for us, being able to touch something, being able to feel it, connects it to us in a way that otherwise wouldn't be possible. It makes it more real. And Data being an android, he couldn't see that. And maybe for modern gaming audiences, that's not the case, or maybe they just don't see that yet. I think when you get a little bit older, being able to hold something that connects you to your past, to your childhood, maybe even to family memories, that tactile touch, that collection, seeing it, holding it, has a lot of meaning. Now, maybe a lot of other retro gamers would disagree, but I doubt that. I've seen on Instagram and right here on YouTube some amazing gamers and their collection of old games. Not just I've streamed it using an emulator, or I've used some sort of gaming catalogue on PlayStation or Xbox to play it. But I have it here in my hand. Those old consoles still meaning something. There's too many of them out there for this to just be my opinion. Now, does this mean that the lack of potential physical media in gaming is a bad thing? Well, no. Look, it's down to personal opinion. As I said before, there are lots of positives. But it isn't just about the loss of that tactile aspect. What I want you to consider is whether or not a video game to you is just a game, is just something you're playing now and you'll move on to something different once you've completed it. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. This is not me gatekeeping or putting across my superior opinion. Nothing along those lines. But I want you to consider if maybe you're someone who sees gaming and a video game as a piece of art. I've talked about this before, but what is art? In the past, it was a statue or a painting, still is now. But how many people consider compositions, pieces of music, a masterpiece, a piece of art in one form or another? I would agree with that. Now, what each person sees as good art is, of course, individualised. But if a piece of music is something visual like a painting is, well then, movies can be. I think a lot of people would agree with that. A lot of truly talented actors would consider what they're putting together art. So what about video games? Well, the work and effort that goes into putting a video game together, compiling it onto that cartridge disc or that downloadable form, can be significant. I've seen it. I've spoken with people that have had to put these together, and I know the effort that goes in. That's before you even consider the soundtrack, which in itself is music and can be stunning. Games like Assassin's Creed Origins, like Resident Evil come to mind for having beautiful soundtracks. Hogwarts Legacy. And then if you want to consider games that just have soundtracks of other songs which are absolutely world class, like GTA, Vice City especially, or the classical beautiful music that you would hear in a Star Wars game, the heavy metal riffs that you would hear in something like Doom or Devil May Cry. And what about the actual acting? In a lot of games now, there is genuine voice acting or even visual acting by true actors. Lance Reddick, for example, in Destiny 2. There's so many fine actors and actresses involved in video games now. How is this not a work of art? Now, why does this seem relevant to me with regards to physical media? Where am I getting to with this? I will tell you. What is art today is shunned tomorrow. What society in 1 year considers to be fascinating, beautiful, edgy, is considered offensive and unacceptable within a couple of years. And then 5 years down the line, people look back and go, well, actually, maybe it wasn't so bad. Or maybe it was so bad, but it was a product of its time. Art should not be cancelled or edited. Art is a representation of the time it was made, the views when it was made. And in a lot of ways, trying to change it to fit with a modern perspective is just wrong. It's editing art and it's editing history. Now, if you do not own physical media, a lot of your favourite games are going to be either deleted, are going to be cropped, and over time, things are going to be taken out of them. Certain things might just get copyrighted over time, so we can't put that in anymore. A certain person might not be politically popular, for very good reason, by the way. So that's going to be taken out. Certain soundtracks, certain songs, certain singers might have issues that have them taken out of games. And I'm not saying that these things can't be for good reason. But there are so many TV shows now that if you watch them on a streaming service, are 5 to 10 minutes shorter than the original cut, because certain aspects of them are now considered offensive or unacceptable. And they may well be, but for me, I don't think that's a good thing, editing and cropping things out. Over time, we understand where things were in a different period in time. It doesn't mean we consider it okay. I remember playing Super Punch-Out, specifically to do a retro review, and I was very aware that some of the characters in it were very much based on very simplistic racial stereotypes. And I wasn't a fan of that. But I wouldn't want them taken out of the game. I don't ever personally agree in editing or censoring art, because over time, that's what tells us what the world was like at that point. If you like a game and you want to be able to preserve it in all of its glory and gory, the good and the bad, and hold it as a piece of art, especially as a retro gamer, physical media is the only way to do that. There's a lot of reasons why people move away from physical media, but the main one is because you're encouraged to. It might seem like it makes sense, but why do you think game companies want this? Well, for the same reason companies do everything. Money. And that's not a criticism, by the way. Money makes the world go around as far as companies, these big organisations, are concerned. So if they can sell you a game without ever having to give you something, great. If they can sell you a game on day one because you don't have to make that conscious decision to walk out and go to a shop, find the time to go and buy it. You don't have to stand there and actually see there's a few other options. Maybe you want one of those. You just type it into a search bar, see it and buy it. Full price. Not discounted, not with shop to shop giving a slightly better deal. Full price right from there, right on your store, downloading it right away. Downloading it in a way that they can still control. That's why they do it. You're not going to go to a shop and see you can get it second hand for £20 cheaper, because you're just going to buy it right there. They also don't want you to buy it second hand because they don't make the money from it. The shop does. The shop bought it off someone and the shop is selling it to you. They make no money from that. They don't like that. So they want you to sit at home and just look for their product, buy their product, full price, with no competition, no debate, no waiting, no consideration. That works best for them. That's why they want you to do it. Why do they want these streaming services? Why do they want these subscription services? Well, because they can just get guaranteed money from you every single month. There's a huge percentage of people who, even when they stop playing on their games console, they stop buying games. They don't cancel that subscription. And it just keeps taking. There's a huge percentage of people that actually keep that subscription going long after they've sold the console. They just forget it's there. And they keep getting your money. They're not even giving you anything anymore. Or if they are, you're not taking it. They don't have to make anything new. And anytime something comes along, there's a new version of that game coming out, we're going to take it off the subscription service now. Why? Because if you want to play it, you're going to buy our new remastered version, which, by the way, won't be on the subscription services. I believe it was on Steam, where just before the remastered trilogy of GTA came out, the original versions of them all disappeared. Because if you want it, now you have to buy that version. The use of subscription services and the use of non-physical media may work best for some people. This is not a criticism of those that want that. This is not a criticism of the people that find benefit in that. It might be easier. It might be better. Some people don't want tons and tons of games racked up. And not everyone is going to care about collecting games. Not everyone is even considering, having that interest, that retro collector, or even considering themselves a gamer. They just play some games, and then when they get bored, they turn it off. And that's it. And that's fine. Again, no criticism, no judgment, no gatekeeping. But don't think that the drive away from physical media is because it's best for gamers. It's not because it's best for gamers. It's not because it's best for gaming. At least in my opinion, and based on everything else I see and hear around me, it's because it's best for making money for people with a lot of money. The same people that will sell you a game in advance and use you to beta test it to find all the bugs. Instead of paying someone whose job it is, which is what they've always done, to test games or to find out all the bugs, they make you pay extra. The promise of a couple of extra skins. You then pay extra to play it 3 days in advance. And you report to them all of the glitches, the bugs, the mess that the game is in. You are paying to work for them. And they're laughing, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe they're not. But it feels that way. It's like if someone came into my house to tidy it up, and as they left, they had to give me money. That's this situation. Do they sound like people that are doing what's best for gaming? For gamers? Or for themselves? Seems pretty clear to me. Look, I love having physical media. I'm sat right here in my lounge right now, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of DVDs stacked on shelves, Blu-rays stacked on shelves, books, because I want actual physical books, comics, because I want the actual physical comics. I have CDs, actual CD discs, rather than just using streaming and subscription services to listen to music. That's just something I like. I want those things. I like seeing them. And I'm the same with my gaming. I miss so many of the old physical games that I owned that I ended up selling or giving away. And I regret that massively. And I think a lot of people in the future will do the same. They will look back and wish they still had those physical games. Or wish they had them in the first place. Why did I just buy that game and download it to my PlayStation 3 or 4? Now the PlayStation 3 or 4 is broken and they've changed the store so I can't get those games. I've just given the money for no reason. But I really like that game. If I had it now, I could just go and buy a new PlayStation and play all those games. But I can't. I bought games on, I believe it was the 3DS, on their store, Nintendo's store. I bought those games. And on the newest Nintendo store for the Switch, I don't own them anymore. Same account, same email address. I don't own them. I now have to pay them a subscription. to play some of those games online. Hell, some of those games even aren't on the subscription. The moment my 3DS dies, the money I sunk into those games disappears. And if I buy a new one, I can't just log into the account now because those stores have shut down. Those games don't belong to me anymore. The moment that dies, and eventually all consoles do die, by the way. My Nintendo 64, all my games are on cartridges, so when that dies, I can still get a new one. I've actually got 2 of them now. There's a lot to consider, and maybe I'm just being a grumpy old man. That is a distinct possibility. I am a bit of a grumpy old man. But at the same time, this is how I feel. This is how I feel about gaming. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way. Maybe some people do. I do have games, by the way, that are just downloaded to my console. I'm very aware of that. And I use the subscription services. In fact, I use a lot of them specifically for this channel, because it's easier for making content. So I'm just as guilty, and I'm actually keeping that machine going too. So I want to make that clear, because I wouldn't want to be sitting on a high horse. But where possible, I will always buy the disc. I will always buy the cartridge. But anyway, this has been the RetroSaber podcast, and this has been Saber of Saber Duel Gaming rambling on for about 26, 27 minutes. But what do you think? I genuinely care. I want to hear what different people of different age groups think about this, because I know that my subscribers, who, by the way, are marching towards 1,000 subscribers, which I'm very excited about. Thank you very much to everyone who has been subscribing to my channel, who's been watching videos, shorts, lives, whichever, and interacting. But I'm very aware what a diverse group you are. From all around the world, male, female. I've seen that my fan base is from kids that are still in school, all the way up to adults older than I am. So what do you think? Do you care about physical media, or do you not? It's something you've grown up with, that everything can just be downloaded, so you're quite happy with that, and you don't see ever regretting it. Or is this something that now you think about, you think, oh, actually, I would like to be able to own those things. I don't want them to be able to take them away from me or change them so that they're not what they once were. Or do you already like to have physical media and feel the same way as I've already said? Comment below. Give me your opinions. I really want to be able to give feedback in future videos to what people have said. And I do want at one point literally just to respond to specific comments from these podcasts. So please comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are on physical media versus non-physical media. Physical games versus non-physical games. The idea of games being edited or taken away if people think that they're no longer socially acceptable or appropriate. Maybe you support that, and I'm with that. I want to hear what your views are. Either way, give me your thoughts, comment below, and let me know. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please put a like on the video. It is appreciated. Feel free to share it. Let others know if you think there's people out there that want to think about gaming in the same way. And if you haven't, let me know. If this isn't the kind of stuff you want to hear about, that's fine. Put a comment on there and tell me, nah, try talking about this stuff instead. Tell me the kind of things that you would like to hear about in these podcasts. But for now, this has been Saber Duel Gaming. I hope everyone has a great weekend or a great week, depending on when this lands. And until next time, please be safe and take the high ground.